Right. Well, that was fun. And it looks like everything's working on this very cheesy overlay I made. It's a beta test of our Ryvelations overlay here. Um, so, Burns, you're our first guest. Congratulations on being the first guest on Ryvelations.
Such an honor.
Yeah. And, you know, the obligatory Burns is great. You know, Vladis always does his podcast, you know, and every single guest is the specialist guest ever. You know what I mean? It's like, just one time I want Vladis to go, I got kind of a shitty guest this time, but this is all I could get this time. It's really what I'd like to see. But no, I definitely do enjoy your content, and there's definitely a reason why. Not just the poll, but there's definitely a reason why you're the first guest, because I think you've really burst onto the scene. And you've made a huge impact, and I think, you know, we needed more content creators that had that analytical approach, and I think you have that. And
I take so much inspiration from you. I mean, I was commenting on your videos every single time and sharing your videos to my friends and being like, "Hey, I'm really excited for this game, guys. You should watch this game."
Yeah.
And then you highlighted one of my comments in one of your videos, and I like instantly linked it to my friends. I was like, "Guys, check it out. I'm famous."
Yeah.
And so then I was like, "Man, this guy does it great." And then when you linked my comment, I was like, Maybe I should try this. Well, let's try it out. So I made a few videos. You were like the first sub. And then you shared my channel on one of your videos. And I think when you linked my my channel, I think I had 36 subs or something like that when you shared my channel. And then it was a huge bump though, man. I think I got up to like 80 just like within a short period of time after that because you helping me out.
No, well, I'm glad that I helped you there, because you've done a fantastic job and you've made so much progress. I mean, you're doing all the YouTube things correctly. I mean, you're doing things way better than I'm doing, all those things, you know.
I don't know about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I remember when you told me you were going to start, and I've had people, you know, tell me that, and then a lot of people didn't follow through. But man, you definitely followed through. So you're one of those guys that say, if you say you're going to do something, you really do it, and you did a fantastic job.
Appreciate it, man.
Last week we were in the chat. We were talking about scrotoplasties. Now my question is, we got to go there.
Yes, good. I want to.
Yeah, we'll get to ashes eventually. But if somebody, what reason would somebody need? My assumption is, you know, obviously like testicular cancer or something like that. But are there other reasons for scrotoplasty?
Yeah. So in medical school, everyone's like, oh, I want to be a surgeon. I want to cure cancer. I want to be a pediatrician. I just love sick kids and being depressed all the time. Oh, I want to deliver babies and have angry women yell at me for a living. And I was like, man, I like dick jokes. I like hanging out with the boys. I want to be a urologist. And so I like hung around all the urologists, and it was just a bunch of dudes, and we had a good time. And so the first surgery I ever scrubbed in on, right? So where you scrub your hands and then you put on the gloves and get all ready to go into the surgery. First surgery I ever did was it was a testicular cancer case, and so it was weird because it was an older guy who had testicular cancer, and so scrub in, and I show up as a fresh medical student. I'm like making sure to stay sterile and keeping my hands like right next to my face. So we get there, and I was expecting this, very somber thing because this guy had cancer. Bro, they're blasting AC/DC in the operating room, and there's this guy. The anesthesiologist he's got him out, and he's all draped and stuff. And so we make the first incision I ever made. And by the way, if you have surgery at a teaching hospital, it's very likely a medical student or a resident who's doing most of the procedure. So first incision I ever made in medical school was in a scrotum.
Oh man, right. That's tough though. I mean, to me, like that would be a tough thing because it's not, a stretched piece of skin. Sure. It's like cutting into a raisin there.
Got to hold it taut, right? Spread out, and then and slice right down the frenulum, that line, that natural
Yeah.
line there. And hey, this is all medical. This is all medical, guys. We're not getting weird here. So slice down the frenulum, and then we expressed the testicle that was to get removed, and then did that. And then the program director, though, he's like, "Hey, we could do this guy a big favor," and I was like, didn't we just do him one? And he's like, no, we should help this guy. He could use a scrotoplasty. And I was like, oh. So sure enough, I mean, the dude did have a lot of testiculars, like a lot of
Yeah.
scrotal skin. Like there was a lot there.
Yeah.
So just on either side of the frenulum, cut probably, I don't know, a fair bit on either side, and then stitched it back up, and so the coin purse was nice and tight. And so functionally, it's just easier for the guy. You know, now he's not flapping around in the wind, and and then also he had decreased testicular volume by over half now, because the
Of course.
cancerous testicle is kind of big. But yeah. So that was my first scrotoplasty, and then I scrubbed in on a few other ones that were purely cosmetic afterwards.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, somebody's got to do it, of course, and it's a good service to the world. Obviously, I mean, people have ball issues, so.
Yep. And you know, some toilets have the water too high. Sometimes they do.
Dude, I think that might be my thing. I hope it's not that my balls are sagging, but I think
Maybe a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
It could be a little bit of both. It could be a little bit of both. So, Ashes of Creation is the MMO we're talking about here. Our first topic is sieges, and you and I both agree on this. Should they be instanced or not? I think obviously we both think they should be instanced. Give me your case.
So why do you think?
Why do I think? Well,
yeah. Why do you think? Because I mean, I've made a few videos about it.
I think just so they can't be zerged, because obviously, especially with node sieges, like castle sieges, I mean, as well, because castles are a huge thing in terms of the benefits that the guild that owns it gets. But nodes especially, like I don't want my Metropolis node to get just zerged down by thousands and thousands of people. You know, I mean, obviously numbers do matter to some extent, right? Double the numbers, you're going to win like probably 80-90% of the time, if not more. And
right.
So the sieges are very consequential in Ashes, and they don't happen every day either.
Right.
Yeah, to just allow them to be zerged down. And I know they've said that you'll respawn further away, those sort of things. But yeah, I think with Steven, what I worry about with him is his main MMOs were Arcage, Lineage 2, and that's the MMOs he knows. He doesn't know the other MMOs that well. And those MMOs, everything was open world, so that's what he's pushing towards with everything. And I think open world for most things is fantastic, but I think there's a place for instancing, and I think Sieges is that place. And I'll let you take it away with your thoughts.
Dude, totally agree. So first, castle sieges and then node sieges. With castle sieges, on the wiki, there's an older older clip on there from Steven saying that if you're not originally registered, that you won't be able to participate in the castle siege. That was like from 2019, but then from 2020 or 2021, there's a conversation that Steven was having where he said, hey, yeah, it's going to be open world. So if you're seeing, you could walk in and participate, but you're going to spawn farther away. And then it's like, well, okay, how far? Because a castle siege is 2 hours long. Let's say it spawns you 15 minutes away, which by mount, that's pretty far, man. You mount up and it takes you 15 minutes to get there. That's pretty far. But okay. So then, I mean, how many lives does that give you? 15. So 8. You get 8 lives. I mean, that's 8 extra lives getting to the battlefield just from one person. And that's enough to like completely change the tide of the battle. So also, Steven, to your point, Rive, Steven was saying that he was part of this gigantic guild before. Apparently there were thousands, like 5 digits of numbers of people in his guild, which is insane. And I'm a little concerned that the mechanics that he's baking into the game reward bigger guilds too much. That yes, there are some stopgaps for that. There are some things that will keep big guilds from running everything. But if you allow everything just to get zerged, especially castle sieges, I think that's bad. But when it comes to node sieges, I'm actually kind of okay with node sieges being open world because it's a little bit like fight by voting or vote by fighting, right? Like let's say there's a guild that everyone hates, they start doing all these terrible things, like the whole server can band together and wreck their node.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's a good point. I haven't thought of it in that respect. I like that idea actually. I think, you know, obviously with everything, we got to see it in action, you know, and from there we can make some more determinations, but you know,
but
I think
they're
it's
just glancing at it from a distance where we are now. You and I are both like,
yeah, no, absolutely. I you know, I'm worried about that, but I guess would it be an easy switch? I mean, if they build these things to be open world, would it be an easy switch if we find out it doesn't work? I don't know, because they would have to build like another. I don't think it'd be that hard for them to just make it instanced if they had to
swap it over.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's true. And also performance. You know, I'm sure their programming's great and all that stuff, but no matter what, the performance is going to be better if you cap it and you instance it.
Yes.
Their programming isn't magical. It's not like you can have 10,000 on 10,000 without any lag issues. There are going to be. I mean, it's an MMO. You still have these same problems.
Yes.
So performance would be better, and therefore gameplay, in my opinion, would be better if you 250 versus 250 done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's more balanced. You know, for some people, sieges could be their end game. And I kind of hope, and this is kind of related, but I kind of hope that sieges happen often enough for somebody that wants to do a lot of sieges. It's available often. There is 5 guild castles, so if they can somehow spread that out throughout the month, and then node sieges, obviously it's going to depend on when people declare. But we know castle sieges happen every month on the month. But if they could spread those out, that would help to where people could participate in more of these things. I also would love to see like a hybrid of, because I come from like the Dark Age of Camelot and Guild Wars 2 and ESO, where they had these castle sieges that were persistent and they weren't structured, and so a lot of it was unorganized chaos. But you could jump into a very epic, you know, kind of castle siege whenever you wanted. I would love to see, not at launch, but as an expansion, some sort of thing like that. Throne and Liberty.
Did you play ESO?
I played it some, off and on.
Did you ever do Cyrodiil?
Cyrodiil, yep.
Are you saying something like Cyrodiil?
Like Cyrodiil, like Cyrodiil or Guild Wars 2's World vs. World or Deox, RVR. So, yeah, something like that. But I don't know how you integrate that into Ashes, but I'd love to see like some sort of like open world objectives that you can capture 24/7 that are not on a timer, not at server prime time only. I would love to see something like that.
There are mini sieges apparently, like leading up to each week leading up to a castle siege. So I think there's going to be a lot of PvP action for those who want it, which is good. I'll just be interested to see what that ends up looking like, because, you know, there are no battlegrounds, right? There's arena, and an arena goes up to, did he ever say 20 versus 20? Was that the cap?
There's like it's like 3v3, 5v5, and then like a bigger one, like a 10v10 or 20v20, something like that. Yeah, it's bigger. It's much bigger.
So there are no battlegrounds traditionally, right? And I know that's a big end game loop for a lot of people who like to do PvP. So I wonder if these pre-sieges leading up to a castle siege will be a battleground type of experience. And as I really like battlegrounds, and if they're not in the game, like let's say these pre-sieges are just dumb little tasks or whatever quests that you have to run, I'm probably going to start making videos on, hey, we need battlegrounds, and I'll probably beat that drum pretty hard.
Yeah. And there's a tons of PvP in the game, but all of it is very, like, you could run around and not have PvP. You know, there isn't like a place you go and this is where PvP happens. And that's, I mean, that's how it is in Arcade and Lineage 2, and it worked fine. But the Ashes of Creation, the corruption system is a lot more painful, or it's less forgiving than the systems in Arcade and Lineage 2. So I do wonder, will there be enough PvP? And this is not an opinion hardly anybody else has, because everybody thinks there's going to be way too much PvP.
Yeah, right.
I'm a contrarian sometimes to a fault, and I think sometimes I wonder, will there actually be enough PvP? Just like organized, structured PvP that you can actually do. Because caravans, sure, those could be fun, but they could also be very boring. You might not run into anybody. So
sure. Dude, that's an interesting point. And that's also one of the reasons why I've liked your channel so much over the years, is because you talk about both sides. You're like, hey, and you do a good job of it too, which makes it that I think that is how you analyze things from multiple perspectives. And I've tried to take that, but yeah, I like how you do that a lot. So that's a good question. Will there actually be enough PvP for people who are all about PvP? And yeah, it's an interesting thought.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever actually done that video, like that video idea. Maybe I should do that video idea. I think I've had it on the back burner for a while. That and my ideas for like maybe adding more PvP, which is crazy. That I didn't say I don't want to really make a video suggesting new features to Steven, because he takes every suggestion and just adds everything in, you know. And they've got enough to work on. Not that he watches my videos, but just on the off chance he would, I don't want him to like get a wild hair up his ass, decide to make the game even more complex.
Well, we know he's at least seen your name before.
Yeah.
Sorry, too soon? Too soon?
He saw it briefly. Yes, he did.
He saw it briefly.
This is the month. I'm finally going to get my question answered. I submitted again on the YouTube and on the forum, so we'll see if they actually answer.
I got to go like thumbs up and highlight your comments so you get so the universe gets set right and Rive's question gets asked.
Yeah, let's get this thing set straight here. Get a bunch of comments here. I might go through some of these.
Let's hit that.
Roar says sometimes people like to PvP without having to go out and seek it out without repercussions. That's why BGs and arenas are good, but if they're instants, they pull people out of the world, and then all the Ashes White Knights jump on your case. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Your thoughts on Roar's comment there?
Well, first of all, I think Rory is crazy. And second of all, it's a decent take. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Dude, BG's like, I mean, it's, you know, I played New World. That's the most recent MMO I played. And that is there's the war system, and then there's the outpost rush system, the one map battleground, and those are the only end game loops. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think battlegrounds are a really good end game, but I think the rewards for them should always be limited, because it's kind of a hobby thing that you do. It's not really the main content in the game, but it's something that has a lot of evergreen replayability.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I will say one of my favorite features of New World was Outpost Rush. I thought that was, honestly say, even though I didn't necessarily like New World as a whole, that was probably one of my favorite battlegrounds as a whole in any MMO. I thought it was really well made. No, I liked the system of the PvE and PvP integrated together. I played quite a few Outpost Rush before I quit the game because of the terrible endgame loop, but I thought it was pretty good. Because
that was it?
I thought it was pretty good.
That's pretty much all there was.
Well, and PvP-wise, there just wasn't much, you know, wars, but I wasn't in a big guild at the time, so I wasn't able to participate in a lot of wars.
Sure.
So
dude, my job,
Rush.
I made it my personal mission to find people like you. I was like, I wanted to find high skill players that aren't in big guilds, and I want to bring them into the wars. And dude, I found some good hidden talent, man, and I prided myself on doing that because we would bring them in, and then this happened a few times though. We were like, we were a good guild. We were way better than we had any right to be, but we had a few social slots, and we weren't, because we inherited the guild, right? I didn't create the guild day one. I inherited it after the guild leader, he quit, which a lot
Yeah.
of people quit. So then I inherited it with a buddy, and so we ran it, and we built it up really well. But in the course of building it up, there were some growing pains. And yeah, it brought some people in that stayed. And then once they realized, once their name got out there, once people were seeing how well they were doing with us, then they got poached from our guild, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens with any MMO. It'll happen to some degree with Ashes. I don't suspect to the same degree, but there's going to be people that, start guilds and end up leaving the game, and then somebody else takes over. And that's the unfortunate part of every MMO is the whole boom and bust cycle that they go through nowadays. And I don't know. That was kind of one of the topics I had. Yeah, is Ashes destined to be a niche MMO, or can it go mainstream? That's the next topic, actually. So it's kind of a good segue into that. And everybody, even like the diehard Ashes people, kind of almost lean towards it's going to be niche. But I kind of get the feeling that it can do a lot better than that. I think it could be mainstream. I'm not sure I can explain why.
What do you mean niche? Like how many, or as they say in Europe, niche? What's your definition of that?
Well, I would say like an MMO like EVE Online is very niche. Albion Online is very niche.
Sure. So what, like 10 to 40,000 concurrent players, something like that?
Yeah. New World has kind of gone niche route a little bit, recently. Those kind of MMOs.
Dude, less than 10K. Yeah. Less than 10K concurrent players at peak, which that's the lowest they've ever had. And there's no end in sight. They delayed one of their content updates, and then everyone at AGS Orange County is now working on the now doomed Amazon Lord of the Rings MMO. Some nerd made a video about that. I can't remember. That was a
great video. Yeah, I love that video. Yeah.
Yeah, all those guys that screwed up New World are now working on this Lord of the Rings MMO, and there have been zero changes.
Horrible.
Oh wow, Roar is so dedicated. Subscribed for 3 months. What a good guy.
Yeah, thank you, Roar. Absolutely. Yes, Paul, you missed the testicular discussion earlier, but you can always go watch the VOD. It probably will circle back to that at some point. Very active chat today. Let me scroll through here and just see if I've missed anything. You draw a big crowd, Mr. Burns.
Oh, well, now, hey, that's
the name Burns, to kind of circle back to Balls a little bit, but is there innuendo involved with Dr. Burns, or is that simply a Simpsons character? Is that the Simpsons character, or is there innuendo with that?
So that's a two-parted answer. First, it was just a nickname that my friends growing up gave me that just stuck. And then when I was playing New World, after I took over the guild and we started doing really well on our server, and we ended up taking over our server, and people didn't like us because we did that. We were supposed to be this middle of the road or kind of crappy guild. We ended up taking over the server, and so this one guild formed of all the people that hated me, and that I think that was the only thing that, like, the only common thread that they had was their hate for me. And so their guild name was going to be Burns When I Pee. And that someone told me that some friend of a friend messaged me that, and I said, "Oh, it's kind of a cell phone, isn't it? Like, you should go see a doctor about that." And then they changed their name to something stupid, and then they declared war on us, and we just ground them into dust. And it was my special pleasure to do that. So no real innuendo, but yeah, that's it's just I mean, I think I got that nickname when I was like 10.
Yeah. Perfect. It works for me. Royer is asking me to ask you what your guild plans are in Ashes of Creation.
So, dude, right now I'm in Ethereum. I like Alec. I like the way he plans to run things, and I think it might be a good fit for content creating and playing the game the way I want to play. They seem very competitive with stuff. So we're gonna do the dating phase. Me and Ethereum during Alpha 2. Want to see how it goes. Hang out with them in the Discord, and I've got my crew from New World who I'm bringing over to. So we'll see how when you mix a couple different friend groups, you're never really sure how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. So hopefully, best case scenario, everything works out there, and it's a good run, and we worked together for a long time, and so we'll see.
Tango's asking, are you going to be on West servers?
Ooh, so US East, unless they have US Central. And then I want to be on US Central, because I think US Central servers would be such a good idea, because if people on the East Coast want to play with their West Coast friends, and then also there are more people in US Central time zone than there are on US Mountain and US Pacific combined.
Yeah. I think it's like East is the 50%.
East is the most. Yeah. It's 40. Yeah. Like 45. It's close. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but Central is a lot bigger than people realize. Absolutely. I mean, of course, you've got Chicago and like Houston, some giant cities in Central time. So, but yeah, Central servers. I'm in Central time, but my guild, we have a ton of East people, and we have some.
Do you have many
people.
West?
We have a few, but it's one of the lowest, numbers groups.
Sure.
So we're leaning pretty hard towards East.
Nice.
Hidden Dagger says Central for the win. JRX says we won't get Central. Some MMOs, like really popular MMOs, do get Central servers. It can happen. What else? I think that's the main questions here. I think I'm fairly caught up. I missed some earlier on. It was very active early on. When we were talking about testicles, I was glued to the screen there. So I guess your thoughts on, can Ashes go mainstream?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, mainstream, I would say mainstream, my bad definition of it would be it has, several 100,000 people playing it for a while, for a long time, maybe 300,000-400,000 people playing it. I think that would be a good number. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, maybe you could call that niche, but like if several years after launch, you still have several 100,000 people playing, I'd say that's still pretty widespread. I mean, at that point, you still have a lot of servers up. The problem with Ashes is if it starts big and then goes down, or server merges, because server mergers are so catastrophic the way everything is set up. So I think it has the potential. I think there are a lot of systems. The game, there's so much freaking content in the game. I think people who just even play casually are going to be. It's going to be a huge feast. You show up to a feast, and there's a ton of food there, and you can start being like, oh, I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to try this. There is so much content, and content is king. I think it will have staying power for a long time for a broader audience. And then also, from what Steven has hinted at, it sounds like they have expansion content in mind, ready to go. So they're not developing expansion content while the game, right after launch, because right after launch, they're going to need to be focused on server management, on bugs, stopping botters, dupers, all that stuff like that. That is going to be really important. And especially the bug thing. And so if they, which I believe they do, already have the expansion content preloaded and ready to go, boom, like they launch and then they say, hey, we've got, here's our roadmap of content too. And I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I just got 3 subscribers, so appreciate all the subscribers. I agree with you 100% on that answer. I think it can go mainstream. They've pushed it to people like Asmongold and Tim the Tap Man, and obviously Lazy Peon hitched his own wagon to it, and a bunch of other big content creators that you didn't see, like New World, hitching their wagon to these guys. I mean, they tried a little bit. They had like the races and stuff or whatever, at launch, but they didn't do an interview like years before launch like a huge
Right.
interview with Asmongold. That was a big marketing, push when he did that. So, and I know the game does not have features that the very popular MMOs have, but it has so many features. Like, it is a theme park to some extent. It does have some of the theme park elements.
Oh, interesting. How so? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's a sand park, obviously, but the nodes are, I guess they're not really theme parks. Yeah, I mean, it's more of a sandbox, but there is some theme park features. Obviously, you have dungeons, you have raids, but they're not, they're in the open world. And that's the key differentiator, is the open world nature of it.
But I mean, 20% are instance. So yeah, I
True.
can see what you're saying. There is some theme park.
Yeah. 20%, like people underestimate, but it's a huge world. They say 20% of it is instanced. So, I mean, there could be some of that theme park traditional stuff there.
The quests are kind of theme parky, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of despite them being open world, they're still, and despite having multiple branches of, you can choose A, B, C, or D path, and there are different paths from each of those that have consequential. Your choices have consequences on those, but there is still a path you have to follow. So I could see that technically being theme parky as well.
And I think, and I've made this point many times, you look at how long it's going to take to get things done. I think that's a huge benefit because so many MMOs these days, people speed run to the end, they run out of content and they're done. You're not running out of content in Ashes the way they've designed it. Now, that's on paper, but I'm fairly confident like it's tweaking numbers, right? To where you're only going to get X amount of XP for a quest, X amount of XP from a mob kill, to where it's going to be very hard to metagame that to the point of just getting to max level in 2 days. Like people are going to try. There might be exploits to do that, but those will get patched up hopefully. And then people.
Well, dude, I think they're going to be able to because of their technology.
Yeah.
When you hear them talk about, when Steven was talking about botting and duping and all that stuff, they have their baseline programming. If it is as good as they say it is, there will be flags that go up when someone accumulates too much gold rapidly, or my guess is they'll be able to set if someone gets too much experience too quickly too. Like they will be able to monitor things. Like I said in my last video, they're watching you play. Like it is an all-seeing eye that they can set different parameters to be like, oh, hey, this thing was exceeded. Let's flag the account. Let's take a look at it. And dude, whereas with New World, dude, they couldn't tell their head from their, like they had no idea what was going on. They're like, oh, hey, I'm surprised. I think there were server rollbacks on EU, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that, but I'm surprised they didn't roll back a bunch of US servers with all the dupes and all that.
They should have, yeah.
But
Ashes is going to have active GMs, and that's not
right.
Most MMOs don't these days. And so it's expensive to do that, but I think that kind of thing is a huge boost to security in general. So as long as the
integrity of the game,
as long as the game is successful enough to handle, paying for active GMs on every server, then which I think it has a very good chance to do that. Active GMs are literally the best, says J-Rock. Dupes can destroy an economy so fast, i.e. New World. Definitely agree with that.
Rapid, can mind if I read Rapid's comment?
Yeah.
Well, I think in actuality, if they end up delivering on the things they've promised, AOC might become the new king of the MMORPG genre, but maybe I'm overestimating how much people are wanting of an old school MMORPG with actual difficulty and intriguing complex systems and a dynamic world. Yeah, and I'm working on another video right now, and I talk about quite a bit of that in there too. I'm not playing an MMO right now. Are you, Rive?
Not really. I've jumped around. I played a little bit of Arcade Classic, but servers. Every ArcAge iteration dies. So it's just like, it's so hard to motivate yourself to play a server that you know is going to die, and it's dying already.
Sure.
And then Guild Wars 2, I jumped around in it a little bit. I played Season of Discovery, Phase 1. But I've played WoW so many times, it's just like, I can't do it anymore, you know? It's I enjoyed it for what it is, but they tried to copy the WoW Ascension private server, which I spent a year or two playing on that, and I enjoyed it, but they didn't, in typical Blizzard fashion, it's not near as good as Ascension was. So it's just, there isn't an MMO that really tickles my fancy, so to speak, you know? I've tried.
We're hibernating.
Yeah.
Right? I think there are a lot of people like us.
Yeah. I want to play an MMO. I do. And I've tried, and I just can't do it, man. I've tried every one of these MMOs, and they're just not for me. Theme parks are not for me anymore. I enjoyed theme parks back in the day. But the ArcAge style, I want to see an ArcAge style MMO actually succeed. And if Ashes has improved upon the ArcAge formula, I think it could be huge. People don't realize how much success ArcAge had early on, before they went crazy pay to win and before all the bugs and everything else. ArcAge, I think that formula can work. Like, a game like ArcAge can be mainstream. I don't get this whole mentality that the only way an MMO can be mainstream is to be a WoW clone. Because before WoW, all those MMOs were mainstream for the time. Ultima Online and Dark Age, all those MMOs, EverQuest, they were all mainstream. Back then, gaming wasn't what it is now. But, you know, like Lineage 1 had like 3 million players worldwide before WoW.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and people don't realize some of these things, but to have 3 million players back then is an absolute massive amount of people.
That's a ton.
And most of them were Eastern, I get it, but WoW came in, and then everybody decided we have to be like WoW. But before that,
Star Wars Galaxies, right?
Yep,
I mean, they made a direction change to become a WoW clone, and further alienated their player base, unfortunately. And lost everyone. Yes, Q. I plan on just maining Ashes. I play Fortnite with my friends every now and then. And bro, we've got like a 36% win ratio. Just want to say, and I will not be playing Fortnite anymore when Ashes comes out. All I'm going to be doing is playing and then making videos. That's it.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh yes, it's just Ashes for me. You know, I went through an experiment phase with my channel where I covered all these other MMOs that are on the way, but I stopped doing that, you know, because Ashes is getting closer, one, and also I think it kind of hurt my channel to cover all these different MMOs. So switching back to Ashes full-time on my channel has been beneficial, I think. And also the other MMOs just don't interest me near as much. I have some interest with a game like PAX Day, because if you could make EVE Online in a fantasy universe, I think that could be a very good game. But there's several decisions they've made in the last few months that have soured me a bit on PAX Day. I'm still interested in it, but I just can't make videos on it right now.
Dude, and just the questions that they're asking too. It's like, ooh, I don't like those questions. That's I made the analogy on Voices of Vera. I was like, you know, your wife comes to you and says, "Hey, would you ever think about having an open marriage?" And you're like, "What?
Yeah,
come again?" You know, and then your MMO designers, you hear them say, "Hey, would you guys ever think about allowing pay to win?" And you're like, "What?"
Yeah, I can't agree with that, the whole Plex situation. I mean, MMOs are highly profitable without pay to win and without tokens.
Right.
With just a box and a sub, you can be very profitable if you have enough players. WoW back in the day, with just box plus sub, before they even did the cash shop, allegedly had like a 70 to 80% profit margin, which is just
holy crap.
Unreal. Of course, they had like 15 million players, but and so, you know, no other MMO probably had that kind of profit margin, but still, that just goes to show that you don't need to have a token. You just need to be successful. You need to have enough players, and you can be profitable without tokens and things like that. And then it's also like they decided they're going early access, which I know we're talking about Ashes, and they're basically doing the same thing. But their reasoning for going early access is because their investors are wanting them to start making money more or less.
I didn't know they were going to early access, like legit early access.
Yeah, they're going to go Steam early access. They said in Q2.
Got it.
So
holy crap.
Yeah, and it's not ready for it. Like I'm excited to play this next test, but I watched the footage from Altari the other day, and it's nowhere near ready for early access. So I don't know.
Bro, tell me if you've heard that story before, right? Like investors say, hey, you have to release because we want you have to show us that you're making money. We won't do a long-term investment in you. We need to see a return. I mean, that's the story of the past 2 decades with MMOs.
Chasing short-term profits, but at the expense of the long-term health of the game.
For sure.
And that's always the issue there.
Which is what's so unique about Ashes. And that's, when I found that out, that was probably the big thing for me, where I was like, hey, I am down for that. That is awesome. No publisher, not going to get rushed out. Sure, going to have to wait forever. I'm going to lose my hair in the meantime, but fine. As long as we get a good game at the end of it, then hey, worth it. But bro, there does come a point where you start being like, hey, that's been developed for a little while now. Yeah. Like, how long is too long for you? At what point are you starting to get concerned?
I missed part of what you said there at the beginning.
So, at what point do you start getting concerned? Maybe during Alpha 2. So for you, how long is too long for Alpha 2? Because that goes until launch.
How long would be too long? Oh man, because I'm of the opinion that it's going to be a very long Alpha 2, because I just don't think they're very far. And people said before A1 that they're hiding stuff from us. They're not showing us stuff. And then we played Alpha 1, and it was everything that they had showed us, prior to Alpha 1 in the live streams.
Okay.
So when I look at Alpha 2, I kind of get the feeling that they're coming up. We're going to have just the Ryvelations. They're showing us what they have, and because Steven can't hold back, right? Like if he's got something, he shows it, So I really feel like they're just got the Ryvelations maybe done for Alpha 2, and then that means there's a lot left to build out. Now that doesn't mean they haven't started on the other zones. I'm 100% sure they have. They're just not ready yet for players. And I hope I'm wrong on that. A lot of people think we're going to have 3 zones at the start, and I hope we do. And if we do, then we're a lot closer than I think. But how long would be too long would probably be, just because I think they have a lot left to do, it'd be like 5 years. That'd be too long.
Too long? Oh, interesting. Yeah. Bro, yeah. I'm with Nuke and a lot of guys in chat. I mean, I could see it going a long time, but man, at 2 years, I get concerned. Like if Alpha 2 lasts longer than 2 years, if there's no beta if there's no beta 1 at 2 years, right? Because the betas are going to run concurrently with Alpha 2. So if there's no beta, even announcement at year 2, I mean, when we're, let's see, what would that be? Q3 2026. Oh,
yeah.
You might see a slowdown in the cadence of the Copium Clinic. The Copium Clinic might not get. They might take a temporary hiatus in funding of that because. Yeah, that would be a long time.
And that was one of my questions that I threw on there, because I feel like sometimes I'm a bit of a doomer. Like I think Alpha 2 is going to last like 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
I'm a little bit like, if you watch Narc, he's like the same way. He thinks Alpha 2 is 5 years, Yeah. Right. I guess I'm a little, maybe I should stop watching Narc, but.
and here's the thing from certain streamers. Oh no, Alpha 2 is going to last 5 years. Anything less is copium. Anything less. Oh no, I think you guys are full of it. Anything less than 7 years is copium. You guys are idiots.
It's like one up everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, because that's what it is. That's what this has gone to, right? Like, there has to be a point where people start being like, hey, like, is this actually going to come out? I mean, you can't test it in perpetuity. There has to be an end to testing. And I'm going to make this point in one of my upcoming videos, but you won't test everything in Alpha 2. You won't get to test every quest, every node, every whatever, but everything will get tested because it's going to be tested by 200,000 people, right? We're probably somewhere around there, in between 150 and 200K is my guess. So that many people testing on at least 150 servers, that means everything is going to get tested, just not by you, right? Yeah. So, and 7 years, it's going to last 7 years. Anything less is copium. Take that to the bank.
Yeah, he's very confident, our boy Narc. Extremely confident.
Yeah, don't disagree with him either. Hey,
no, you can't. I'm never very confident in anything. That's probably a weakness of mine. Is like I feel like, I always give all sides a chance, which is probably a problem.
No, that's I like that I like that part about your channel, and I've I try to do that where you see both sides of an issue. But apparently, my argument about caravans, where I said it was a bit of wow brain. Apparently, that went over like a lead balloon in Narc's Discord. So. When I say something is wow brain, I think people are looking for everything to be an instanced, balanced part of content, and you're not going to get that with Ashes. Not much is going to be balanced, and some of that is good, some of that is bad. But tying it back to our Castle Siege discussion, I think it would be bad for it not to be capped, because it's not an issue of fairness, it's an issue of compelling gameplay. Someone posted it in chat. But I'm going to talk about this in another video too. Is, bro, if it's not instance, you just bring caravans, man. Like, you have little mobile healing stations. You're doing your repulsor blast all over the battlefield and blowing people away. Like, yeah. So it's got to be instanced. So I had to tie that back.
Yep, definitely, I agree. So some of the questions I have on the list here are kind of the doomer a little bit questions, but my biggest my biggest doomer thing for Ashes is always, I think the scope is, I don't know if I've ever seen an MMO with this big of a scope. Like, and that's what I worry about. How can they make all these systems functional and polished by launch? And I really think that some of these systems get scrapped before launch. What are your thoughts? Well, some of the ancillary systems, like the Monster Coin, would be an easy one. The Stock Exchange would be an easy one. The problem is some systems can't be scrapped. Like, a lot can't be scrapped, right? Because you need caravans. You can't scrap those.
Yep, right.
Everything that has anything to do with nodes, you can't really scrap. I mean, it would be hard to scrap freeholds, because where are you going to put all the processing stations? You're going to slam them all into the node. I mean,
I guess you could, and you could time gate them. Oh, that'd be so terrible.
Yeah.
But
And then, I look at like systems like freeholds, and I'm diverting a little bit, but you look at freeholds and, okay, like, as these nodes level up and as they expand, like, how does it exactly work with the plots? Like, when you get to a stage 6 metropolis and you have more freehold plots, are those plots around the metropolis node, or are they around some of the vassal nodes where they open up? And how does that work when that node gets destroyed? And then, do they have all these plots kind of set up already and know how all that's going to work? I'm probably not explaining this well at all, but
I think they do. I think they have spots that are, because there's the baronies, right? So like counties, right? So where you can put a guild hall in the middle of, and then the spots open up as the node levels. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how it works, with the vassal system. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not explaining it well at all, but there's just things like that. How do they make all these systems work together? How do they make, with the divine nodes, they're going to have a catacomb dungeon underneath them that connects all the vessels. How does that work? How are they going to make that work? And how are they going to make, like, certain content unlock as nodes unlock and not cause all sorts of issues, where you've gated a certain item out from one node or from one server that they have to have. And the only way to get that item is now you got to destroy a Metropolis node or something like that to level up another node in order to get that item, because that item is so strong that you can't complete any content without that item. Stuff like that I just, like, I've seen in other MMOs issues, like with MMOs where it's a very straightforward MMO, they have issues like this all the time. Whereas this MMO is so complicated, like those kind of issues could be
scope is so huge.
Yeah, be very hard to resolve those sort of things.
So I agree with that, and but just to take the opposite approach, so we can, for discussion's sake,
yeah,
I think their foundational programming is what they've been setting up. So the fact that they were able to show how the server reacted to and they said it at the beginning, they're like, hey, we're going to tone this down. So when, because you're just one person doing this commission, when however many minotaurs are being killed, then the server is going to react and it's going to change the lightning storm, and then it's going to populate the minotaurs in there. So the boss who's going to fight in there. I think a lot of it just comes down to their server tech, and I've heard them say in the live streams, they say when they talk about systems, like it's not like they're building, it's not like it's a separate, it's not like it's separate data silos, right? It is all linked together. And when they talk about implementing systems, they talk about standing them up, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about like a barn raising or something, right? You build a frame on the ground and then you stand it up. And so I think that's what they're doing they have the foundation of their programming, and then they are standing up the systems which are being implemented in there, in which are all, but like you said, very interconnected, and thus very hard. If you want to like tone something back, would be hard to trim back. But just taking a contrarian approach, I think it's doable because of their server tech. And I think their server tech is from what we've seen, I think it's there. Also in the events live stream, we got to see their server tech work the way that they wanted. No command prompts, no anything like that. It was just like, oh, hey, let's kill spiders and bears. And when we do that, we will see what happens. Like if the server responds with this event, we're going to be in the point of interest where there would be an event. So they test it out, they do it, boom, server tech works. I think that the foundation of their programming is there. It's just a matter of filling it with content, which now you correlate that with all of their job listings on their website, and that starts to make a bit of sense, because the world map, I believe, is done, is my guess. I think the world map, they just need to fill it with content, is a kind of educated guess. And
I could see that. Yeah.
So I think they have their server tech. I think they have the landmass and the water done-ish. And it's just a matter of filling it with content. But what's so hard about it is it's layered content. It's when it's raining, then there's this NPC. Yeah. When it's snowing, then there's these mobs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the complexity, the depth. But I will say, like, that's the thing I worry about the most, but it's also what intrigues me the most, because they're aiming big. And a lot of MMOs are like, we're just going to have this MMO that's a reskinned version of WoW. And this one is actually different. Richie says that we look like a father and son duo. Who's the father, Richie? Tell me.
Yeah, who's the father? He's got more hair than I do.
Who do you think looks older, Richie? Come on now, buddy. A lot of commentary today, but.
Good.
Yeah,
I love. Roar said, "We thought that before, Burns," and I can understand that, and also that I still agree with what you're saying, that the scope is gigantic, and it takes, honestly, like, faith is probably the best word to use. I know, I know a lot of people aren't religious. I am, but I can equate this with it's a bit of faith.
Well. Yeah, I think there's a few things that we can hang our hat on. I think once they get nodes working in one region, I think getting them
Sure.
built out in other regions.
Transferable.
Not that it's copy paste, but to some extent, some of it could be copy paste. They just have to change, some elevations based on, the land and things like that. And I think once they get one area done, the rest are going to be much faster. And the other thing, going back to your point on the team, they're highly selective on hirings. It's been a very slow pace of hiring, but they turn down most people. And if you look at their things like, what are those things? Those ratings websites where people rate their job. I can't.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. They get incredible ratings. Glassdoor, that's it. Yeah, their Glassdoor ratings are incredible. And then also, and they've said that, and we have to trust them on this, but I trust them, that they have an incredibly low turnover rate. So all those things suggest they have a fantastic team in place, which means they can actually pull it off. It's just going to take a while. I feel like, are they around 180 now? I forget what they've said they're at now.
Yeah, 188, I think.
Yeah. So I think they need a lot more, and it's going to take time because they're very slow to hire because they turn so many people down. But once they get to like 250, 300, the pace, especially once they have had the initial stuff done, we've got nodes kind of working in this area now, getting it working in other areas isn't as big a deal. I think at that point, the development will just skyrocket in terms of speed.
Okay, with nodes, I love the node of Miraleth. How there's that big rock or that hill that you climb up. There's a rock up there. There's the public works building or whatever that they have, the mayoral building up there. And man, it looks so good. And I found myself in the mayoral live stream getting kind of attached to the node. But think about think about the Genesis Guild. If you guys build up a node, like you guys are the major contributors of a node like that, and like how attached you will get to your node, and how much like these politics and stuff will start to really matter a lot, because if something happens, you get whisperings of some other guild wanting to come and destroy your node so they can release, whatever vassal state some other node is in. I mean, dude, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. It's apparently Genesis Guild is going to go for a dwarven aesthetic, because I found out this week we have a lot of dwarf fans in the guild. So
Dune Hold, I'm sure, would appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we're going to have to go on the same server as them so we can ensure that our node is we'll go in the same node as them. It'll definitely be a dwarven node at that point.
The dwarven supremacy. And bro, I think there is actually a competitive advantage if you guys are all the same race, because I think this is my guess, that certain races, let's say, Miraleth, you guys build it up and it is all, it's like a dwarven aesthetic. I think there are certain quest givers for that specific race there that will give unique quests to that race. So could be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up on an hour, but we can always go over. It's not a big deal. I went a little over last week. Let's see. Let's go through a few of these here. We went through the scope. What aspect of Ashes are you most interested in?
The large-scale PvP and politics.
Yeah. For me, it's just PvP in general. Obviously, I like all aspects of PvP. I like small scale. I like large scale. The sieges are fascinating to me if they can pull off the size of it. And in Alpha 1, I will say, like, they were smooth, even in Alpha 1. So I think they can actually pull that off in terms of having giant amounts of people in there without lag. I think it's possible. Economy is always the other aspect of MMOs that I really get into. Auction house flipping, that sort of thing. Now, biggest concerns with Ashes, for me, it's the scope. And that's really it. I mean, there's other concerns.
Agreed.
Your scope as well. Yeah, I think there's other concerns, but Steven's never made an MMO before. I think and he's got limited MMO experience, really does. I mean, it's Arcade Lineage 2, right? And so I worry a little bit about that. But other than that, it's mostly the scope.
At least his vision has been consistent. Like when
Yeah.
you watch videos from 2017, the things he says up until now are generally still applicable, with a handful of like like little changes. Oh, the crossbows, stuff like that. The
Yeah.
general tone and tenor and general philosophy of the game is still the same. Whereas you compare that with like New World, okay, it's a small scale survival game. Oh, holy crap! All of a sudden, it's an MMO and you can toggle PvP on and off and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So the vision being consistent, I think, makes the game that like a little bit more believable.
Yeah. Sticking to something is obviously huge. So many MMOs have pivoted, and it's just
But you
not
know what
just
we
New
are?
World. So many
Have you seen Dune 2?
Yeah, I have not seen it yet. I have not seen it yet.
Oh, bro. So
Everybody says
every
it's
time
great.
the Fremen want to believe that Paul is the Lisan al-Gaib, the prophesied one, anytime he does something, they all just go, Lisan al-Gaib. And that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Confirmation bias. But hey, that's the copium, man.
Yeah. Yep. You had a question that you added onto our sheet here. Um, do you think they're on course to make Alpha 2 in Q3? Steven had a post just the other day that said they still are, but he said that before. And I don't know, like the idea that they're not testing the character creator until a month or two, the PI isn't, to me suggests late Q3, maybe early Q4, which it doesn't matter either way.
Right. Dude, I think it's coming out September. If it is Q3, it's September 30th, right? There's no way. I mean, just with their live streams, right? It's like, oh, hey, we could do it the last Friday of the month, or we could do it the 31st. It's like, guys, come on. You're borrowing time from one month to put it into the other. I don't really understand that, but it's fine. It's fine. So I think it will be September 30th is my guess at 11:59.
Yeah. Yep. That's where I'm at. I went early on when they said Q3. I thought it was early Q3, but now I'm shifting further and further down the line, which it's fine. It's a few months. It's not a big deal.
And then one question to ask that, I mean, we don't really have to go over it too much, but like how open is their development actually? Like they say it's open development and it's fine. Like, but we get to see like it's like looking at the Mona Lisa through a straw, right? You're kind of piecing it together, and it's not just like contiguous. It's all like you get a shot here, you get a shot here. Yeah. So it's
very
open
curated
development.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean it's no developer that I know of showcases their game every single month for however many years.
It's the most open of any MMO's development, right? Like name another one. So by comparison, yes, it is open development, but as a like actual fact, not.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that I would say that's maybe more transparent is this Ghost Crawler thing, which I'll be honest doesn't look that great to me. But I mean, they're having like all sorts of. They're going to show the game, and that studio's been around for like 4 months, and they're getting ready to show that game. So
that's
I don't
interesting.
I don't think even Ashes did that, but I think that's too open at that point because there's no way that's going to look good yet.
For sure.
At times, I think Ashes has been too open because Alpha 1 wasn't really ready to be an NDA-free test, in my opinion. I feel like it was really bad. It wasn't a very good game. And I think hype completely died after that. And there's a lot of people that say, hype is bad. We can't have hype. It's a bad thing. Josh Triface, I love that guy, but he did that video, Stop Hyping at Ashes of Creation. And it's basically him repeating that phrase like a million different ways, like slightly reworded over and over again. Especially towards the end, it got very repetitive. And it's like, I don't think hype is actually that bad of a thing. I think it's a good way to market your game. And this whole idea that, you'll never hit, it'll never be good enough to meet the hype. I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like people are going to forget about the hype if the game is good. It doesn't have to be a perfect game. I don't think people are hyping it up to be a perfect game either. I think hype is good. It brings people in. The more people we have at the start, the more we'll have 6 months later. We're going to have the drop off, but the more people we bring in, I think later on down the line, I think it's a good thing. I think hype is fine. What do you think about hype? You think it's overhyped? Do you think hype's bad?
Well, first of all, I love to be a hype man. That's a fantastic role to play. Yeah, I mean, the hype is interesting to watch because it has undulated over time. You get sometimes it goes way up. It was super high. Probably the highest I've ever seen it was December, or this most recent December, when everyone was like, "Oh man, the quarter announcement! It's gonna be quarter one. It's gonna be so great quarter two." And then I've never seen the hype as low as it was maybe a month ago. Yeah, actually, there was a period of time, like maybe a year after Alpha 1, the hype seemed pretty low.
Yeah.
And it feels kind of comparable, and you can almost tell the hype based off of YouTube views. Like, you put out a video and it's like, this isn't doing great. And hey, maybe it's a guy. Maybe I made a terrible video, but like the hype, you can kind of gauge it based off of that. So it's interesting to see that. I'm fine with hype though. And like you said, it's a free marketing tool for now, which means I anticipate them putting money later into advertising and into maybe trailers, stuff like that. I don't trailers. Who knows? Trailers still probably works on the general population, right? It's probably still a good investment to make some cool battle scene where you have the Genesis Guild running at Envious, something like that would be interesting to see. But now, for now they're just using it. It's free advertising.
Well, right now, Genesis Guild running at Envious, we would get destroyed because they have 5 times the people we have.
They got a few. They've
got a lot of people. But, maybe someday. You had one more thing on here on the sheet here. Fighter. What are we going to see for the fighter? Talent trees, abilities. Will we see things like anti-heals? That's a good question.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? What do you think we're going to see?
I think we'll see the talent tree. I think we'll see.
With the talent tree, though, do you think the talent tree is going to be more fleshed out than the Ranger talent tree? Because the Ranger talent tree, right, like had a lot of abilities, passives, actives, but that's it. And the number of talent points that you'll get, if Steven's example holds true, it will be 200, right? So every quarter of a level, you get 1 talent point. There are 50 levels, so you should have 200 talent points. And there were not 200 places to allocate points. There weren't even 50, from what I remember, places to allocate points on the Ranger skill tree. Do you think the Fighter skill tree will be more fleshed out than the Ranger one?
I think the plan is for all of them to be more fleshed out eventually, and I think it'll be more fleshed out. And I think the Ranger will, even though we won't see the Ranger talent tree, I think it'll also be more fleshed out. If the fighter is more fleshed out, I think they're all working on that at the same time would be my assumption, right? So yeah, sure. I bet it will be. I bet it'll be more fleshed out because it was fairly basic for the Ranger. Yeah.
And my guess for the talent tree is that it will be, you put it kind of like Diablo 4. Where you can put multiple points into one ability, making it do more damage or faster cooldown, cost less mana, something like that. And so I'm going to be watching for that on this coming video to see what changes they made to the skill tree for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Abilities. Are you asking how many we might see, or like what kind of abilities specifically? I would say I think we'll see the same amount of abilities as we saw as the Ranger, because Steven did say that it's going to be very similar to the Ranger showcase.
Okay. We saw a lot. Right?
A lot of skills, yeah. I think we'll see a lot of skills.
18?
Yeah.
Maybe even more with the marks.
I want to see their gap closers, because obviously in PvP, melee has to have gap closers, especially after we saw that Ranger showcase and how slippery they are. We've got to have gap closers on the fighter for sure. I don't know if the fighter needs a pull like the tank had a pull in Alpha 1, and a lot of tanks and MMOs have a pull ability.
I think we saw the pull in the Caravan PvP live stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the tank doing it, or do you think that was a fighter?
I'm pretty sure it was the tank doing it.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure it was the tank doing it. And
I think it
that's
was the
good
tank,
because you're
yeah.
making tanks relevant in PvP.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's hard to make tanks relevant in PvP. Especially, I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, this is like tab." Well, it's kind of like ranged combat is tab, and
Yeah.
using ranged abilities for melee weapons is tab, but the melee striking is action.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you can't aggro and force action combat melee to start attack.
Yeah.
That doesn't really work. That's why tanks in New World, like at first everyone was like, "Oh, we should have a bunch of tanks on the battlefield," and I was always like, "Yeah, they're great for my heal numbers, but they're bad for our results." So we cut tanks. We cut tanks very quickly from our war rosters.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of them, very few MMOs have good PvP tanks. The only ones I've really seen are Warhammer Online, Dayhawk to some extent, but Warhammer Online had really good tanks. And then SWOTOR actually had some decent tanks in PvP, but that wasn't a PvP focused game. So I think it is possible to do, but they've got to pay attention to what has worked in the past, to make that happen. Things like in Warhammer, for instance, and I believe in Dayhawk, this was a thing as well because they're made by the same guy, both those games. But you had an ability with the tank where you could basically put a guard like on another player. It had a range, and as long as you stayed within a certain range of that person, you would any damage they took, half of it would go to the tank. Things like that. And then
you put like a guard on a mage who goes and does a blizzard or something, right? Yeah, that could be. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, or another melee or something like. They had to stay within like 10 meters. They had to stay pretty close. That kind of thing. And then skills that give a big buff to the group, pull abilities, abilities that can put a shield up, not just for the tank, but for like a big shield ability that, like if you ever played Overwatch, Reinhardt's huge shield that he put up. Yeah, that kind of thing. Those kind of things can be useful. A lot of CC, if you put a lot of CC on the tank, that can make them very useful in AoE CC especially. That can make them extremely useful in PvP. You can overpower tanks if they have all the things I just mentioned. Like everybody's going to run tank in PvP. So you can't have probably all those things, but there are ways to do it. I don't think it's impossible. A lot of people think like all PvP tanks have sucked in MMOs. That's not been my experience, but it's usually been my experience. So abilities on the fighter. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a pull, but if we have it on the tank, we don't need it on the fighter. But I want to see their gap closers and their CC because for melee, the thing about large scale PvP is melee oftentimes has a very hard time in large scale PvP. Especially 250 versus 250 type or 500 versus 500. It becomes a big ranged standoff a lot of times. And the only way, unless it ends up being a ball meta like in Arcade, then melee has a chance where it's just a big ball of people that just slam into each other, which is very
big bio ball.
Yeah, it's very boring, and I hate that kind of meta. But a lot of sieges have that kind of meta, and I hope it doesn't end up like that. But a lot of times it's a stupid range standoff, and melee's just sitting there doing nothing. So fighter is maybe the hardest one to balance in large-scale PvP. So I want to see how they're planning to balance that.
Dude, my guess is that fighter becomes a super, like, percentage-wise compared to the other classes. There are more fighters on the battlefield in large-scale PvP than anything else, is my guess. New World was interesting where, it's 50 versus 50. So it's, a fifth of what the castle sieges would be. But sorry, a 10th. No, a fifth, because it's 50, 100. Yeah. Anyways. So, it was very melee kind of meatball, but it was more at a low level. It was meatball. At a high level, very nuanced, man. Like in my war strategy video, I talked about the llamas, right? Where
Yeah, yeah,
you have the two main balls fighting, and then you have the back lines, and people from one main ball would try to circumvent and go around and attack the back line of the other people. So we use the word llama as a call out to bring
yeah,
people to hit their backline divers. And that was just a small example, right? But there were so many fun strategies you can develop with that stuff. And dude, I'm really looking forward to it. But my guess is that fighter will be very common because there are capture point mechanics for castle sieges, right? Like
yeah,
you have to
yeah.
occupy a zone. And as you occupy that zone, doing it as a melee with armor and health is going to be easier than trying to occupy a zone as a ranged character. So that's my guess. I'm not saying I
Yeah.
want it to be one way or
Yeah.
the other, but I'm just guessing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing you put on there, anti-heals would be, yeah, we need,
Huge.
you got to have anti-heals because after watching that Caravan and Chibi Bree surviving against like 10 people for like 10 seconds too, like clerics in Alpha 1 were overpowered. I was showing some people last week on the stream some of my footage from Alpha 1 when I didn't know how to stream or do anything at the time, but yeah, I was surviving against large groups of people, fighting
Dude,
like an entire Zerg of people.
Bro, an easy way to fix that is you have you make self-healing for clerics and not do as much. That like
Yeah.
a self-heal, like you go to, cast whatever spell on yourself, it heals for 75% of what it would normally, whatever the number is. I don't care. But
that's
you
a good
can
idea,
decrease that a lot. And they should have done that for Jarrock's like, no, don't do that. Someone plays a healer.
Jarrock wants to be overpowered.
But I mean, if it comes to it, something like that, because healers can get, especially when you look at the abilities that the cleric has already, they're leaning very heavily into a paladin type build where it's a shield and mace or whatever healer who can have a lot of armor, you can have a lot of HP, and bro, if you can heal yourself at full capacity still, you just become invincible, and no one wants to play against that, and they're just going to occupy. Yeah, that would be terrible for gameplay. I mean, it'd be great. I'm probably going to try to do it.
I like the idea of clerics, their heals doing less on themselves than it does on others. That's a good idea. I've not really thought of it like that. I also like, but then obviously clerics could be healing each other and stuff, which that's fine.
That's fine. Yeah, that's what it's meant for.
Yeah. It encourages more group gameplay. And
don't tell J-Rock. Just forget we said that. Just forget I said that.
Or what you could do, and I'm getting really deep here, but you could have. I want Bard to be important, and so you could have, if you have a Bard in your party, they can put a buff on the cleric that allows them their heals to fully heal them. But a cleric by itself, stuff like that, that would make Bard very useful, and you'd want a Bard in every group that way. Because otherwise, there's situations, it depends on the MMO, but sometimes Bard is super overpowered. But Bard is always boring, like in every MMO. But in order to get enough people playing it, you've got to make it somewhat strong. And Jarrock made a good point. Like, you want cleric to be somewhat strong so people play it. But
I don't know though, man. Just based off of the numbers of clerics that you'll need in dungeons, in PvP, like I think there's going to be such a high demand that the supply eventually will meet the demand.
Yeah. I mean, eventually people are going to roll whatever they need to roll based on what's in demand for sure. So, as you said with the fighter, some anti-heal mechanics that'd be nice to see on the fighter. I think that'd be a good class to put anti-heal mechanics on. Rogues could have maybe a little anti-heal, maybe even tanks. But as long as there's a way to counter clerics with good, skillful play, I don't care if they're relatively strong to people that don't know how to play and don't know how to counter it. But as long as people that know how to counter it can actually counter it with the specific setup, that's fine. Pallywags or Wagsy says he set on the cleric since the peon video.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't remember. Did he feature the cleric aggressively in that video? I think he talked about it a little bit. But anyways, we are at an hour and a half. Hour and a half.
Yeah.
So let's see, is Jamie streaming right now? Does anybody know? Last week he was not streaming. Normally I do this crazy like outro thing, but he is streaming. So nice. I will probably go over and raid Mr. Jamie here. I appreciate everybody watching. We have 28 viewers. This is a lot of people this week. So last week we didn't have very many. But everybody wants to see Burns. He's a hot commodity these days.
Bro, it's everyone's talking about Ryvelations, and your consistent streaming schedule, I think, makes a big difference too. So,
I have tried to do this thing where I'm going to stream. I've tried it a few times, and I got like 2 or 3 weeks in, and then I quit. And this is the furthest I've gotten with it. And I really hope Alpha 2 gets here. So because when Alpha 2's here, I'm not going to stop playing the game to have a podcast, but I'll probably stream around the same time. I'll probably keep that time. But, if they shut down Alpha 2 for whatever reason, I could see scenarios where they shut it down, for a week or two to fix something and then bring it back up. We'll bring Ryvelations back for that week, But if the game's here, I'm just going to be playing the game. I won't be doing this kind of stuff. So I'm hopeful that it's early in quarter 3, so I don't have to do it for too long. I enjoy doing it, but it's extra time. It's an extra time commitment for sure. So, Phantom X, welcome in. I didn't realize last week, Phantom X, when you subscribed for 6 months. I really appreciate that. That's a huge commitment. But I appreciate it. Phantom X is obviously has a really good podcast. You know what? I forgot last week. I have this shout out thing that I keep forgetting to use. But that's not your actual channel. What's your? It is
Theory Forge.
Theory Forge. Yeah. Let me get that. Let me get Theory Forge in there. There we go. That's the channel.
Phantom X, guest on season 2 of Bespoke.
Oh, yeah.
You can catch that in 1 week and 12 hours.
Oh, nice. It's already up there? You're just waiting? Are you still editing it?
I'm editing. I'm getting through most of it right now. So it'll be there soon. But yeah, you'll be able to hear Phantom X and all of his wonderful thoughts here coming up soon.
Yeah. And what other videos are you working on? Do you want to... Do you want to keep it a secret, or do you want to give us a little spoiler?
Yeah. So it's the title is going to be finally an MMO that doesn't respect your time.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
I'm going to talk about the neurochemistry behind
shit.
What works for gaming, like why, and talk about dopamine reward pathways and how some games use them appropriately and they to great success, and then other games have no idea about them and just like blast you all the time, and it doesn't make any freaking sense. So working on that right now, and I'm not sure if that's going to be my next one, but I'm scripting that and storyboarding it right now. So hopefully that one will be in, I don't know, a week and a half or so, but we'll see.
I'm sure everybody here follows your channel, but I am going to spam your channel link here real quick just to
appreciate it, bro.
For the one person that actually doesn't follow your channel, they'll be able to see that.
Well, J-Rock just unsubscribed because I had a bad take.
Yeah, J-Rock, that guy, he's a little bit of a wild card. He's a wild card, J-Rock. You never know. Well, I'm looking forward to that. When you did the video on the mounts, that broke my brain a little bit when you got into the whole genetics and what is it, weak traits, and what traits were they? What
recessive and dominant.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm sitting here, weak traits, so this shows how dumb I am.
Well, that's essentially what it is, though. That's effectively for sure what it is.
Yeah. So that was a fantastic video, but it definitely broke my brain a little bit. I hope it's not that complicated, because you're gonna need a goddamn PhD to make a mount in Ashes if it's that complicated.
Dude, and Steve, so I've only ever gotten one acknowledgement from Intrepid, and Steve had commented on that video. And so and I was like, okay, I was guessing on a lot of stuff, and then when he commented, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I was right about the gist of it, I guess, but we'll see.
I'm still waiting on the old Steven comment. We'll get there eventually.
That's coming, bro. I mean, you're such a staple.
Yeah.
Rive is in the pantheon of Ashes of Creation gods. You know,
Oh
like
hell yeah! I like where you're going with this.
they're gonna make an NPC, Rive Genesis, and he's gonna be some jacked Dunir.
Fuck yeah, dude! I'm liking this. We can't end the stream now.
And then he's gonna ask if you want a scrotoplasty. Got it back. Let's
yeah.
go.
Hell
Let's
yeah.
go.
I knew we'd circle back to that eventually. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was a fantastic.
Thanks for having me on, bro.
I think we had a great stream. Last week, I felt my stream was pretty shitty. I'll be honest. But this week, with your help, we brought Ryvelations back. It's back on the map. We're doing good again.
Good.
We're gonna get that raid set up over to Jamie. I appreciate everybody for being here. We had a good turnout this week, and thanks, of course, again to Ashes Relation, Mr. Burns, for being here.
Thanks, guys.
We got 22, and we're going now. See you guys.
Nice.